This talk is called You Don't Need Technology, You Do Need Three Doors. I'm going to look at three different stories and three different concepts. First story is if you've ever been to Europe, you'll realize when you leave Europe, you go through customs. Again, it's called exit passport control. So you go through passport control when you go into Europe, into the 29 country Schengen zone. You also go again on your way out. But this creates, pretty significant lines, for people as they look to leave Europe. And people have very tight connections in cities like Frankfurt or Paris or Amsterdam. So the Europeans have worked to add, quite a bit of technology, including AI, to be able to move this faster. So the passport readers have been improved. They've got additional lanes they've opened up, additional people they've hired, additional structures they've organized, from a technology standpoint to kind of move the lines quicker. If you're an EU citizen, you can actually go through a fully automated process that leverages biometrics, so that you don't have to speak with a person. And these things have been intended to decrease the time it takes to get through exit passport control and also improve customer experience, which of course are very good goals. But now let's think about how do the Americans deal with this same problem of exit customs? Oh wait, we don't. We just let you leave. Now, that's not to say that the Americans aren't interested in who leaves the country. The airlines do provide a data extract that allows for the US Customs Agency to have a sense as to who is left, and that may also enable them to highlight various different visa overstays and so on, which is also of concern to the Europeans. But they have decided to go with a relatively low-tech strategy on this that probably didn't involve any AI at all. So that leads kind of if that's the first story, then the first door, I want to talk about. The first door is avoid. And avoid is stop doing stupid things. Just stop. There's no need to have exit customs. There's no reason why they're doing it. It doesn't serve a purpose. Europeans have never published a study that suggests that exit customs somehow made them safer. And if you're already leaving, it's not like they're going to bar you from leaving unless for some reason there's a warrant out for your address. But again, they've published no data about how this whole elaborate process has made anything better. And if anything, it just makes customer experience worse. It makes costs higher, and it provides, ostensibly no benefit. So that's kind of first story and first door. Avoid work, just stop doing it. Oftentimes that requires no technology at all. The second story is a client we've been working with, health insurance client, which is heavily funded by the federal government. There is not a huge budget for consultants, kind of the post-Doge era. The Doge exercise took aim at consultants and has made it harder to get consulting dollars, but it has made it easier to get dollars to get AI for efficiency. Now, in this particular case, we told the client we really thought it made sense for them to do an assessment to figure out which particular audit steps should be automated in which order using AI. And they basically said they couldn't. But what ended up guessing is after they spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, once we were finally able to get involved in this particular engagement, we found that the staffing impact is 0.2 FTE. So the whopping difference of 0.2 FTE. So if you think about that, right, it's like we're automating the wrong thing with AI. We could have automated something that'd be far more impactful, but instead we didn't do it because we didn't do the right assessment up front. But that really leads us to door number two, and door number two is automate, right? It's have technology do your work, but especially time-consuming work. We want to automate things that really need to be automated where there's an ROI. We don't want to just automate anything. We don't want to just showcase AI. We want to actually drive automation. Now, when we're automating, one of the things we could potentially be using is AI, right? So AI could actually be very beneficial in helping us automate. But it's not the only tool in our tool case, and oftentimes it's the most expensive tool that we could use. So it begs the question, if we want to automate, what are the different levers we could use for automation, and then building the right strategy to automate the right things. So now for the third story. Third story isn't particularly about AI, but it's the same kind of dilemma that we could be facing with AI. And this third story is about an insurance company, a property and casualty insurance company. They were very excited. They had acquired a new core claim processing tool. They've gone from an old green screen where everything is command line to a new point and click screen that was designed and implemented by a very well-known software and consulting company. And what they found was just a small problem, that the claim processing time per touch used to be 4.1 minutes each time they touched something. And now it was 7.5. So yes, it was easier, in as much as easier meant that it was point and click and it went through a wizard and it felt more like a TurboTax kind of view. But for the people who had been doing this for many years, it was actually much, much slower. So, the challenge there is being able to say to the client, congratulations, you have a new system and you have to hire 30 to 40% more people. All because they didn't assess the impact of the tool, before they implemented it, which really leads us to door number 3. Door number 3 is optimize, which is what you can't, automate, what you can't avoid, you fix, right? But you have to fix it in a way that the work, is faster, is more consistent. And I like to use this phrase, give your people superpowers, right? You want to empower your people to work faster. There's some articles that have suggested this idea of like take the robot out of the human. Like find those robotic things that people are doing, but let technology do those for you instead as you optimize. So those are really the 3 doors. Intent is to apply them in order. You're looking at a body of work to ask this question, do we avoid it? If we can't avoid it, can we automate it? And then if we can't automate it, can we optimize it, right? And under the second 2, really all 3 of them, I suppose AI could apply, but it's more the second and the third. And under optimize, you think about like, giving people superpowers can also involve AI. By no means am I saying AI is a bad thing, but I am saying it's not the only thing. And if you're asking the question like, hey, what are we going to do with AI? Or how do we have the right AI strategy? You're kind of missing the point. The point is, at the end of the day, you're actually trying to achieve something big. You're trying to achieve, better customer experience. You're trying to achieve lower costs. You're trying to achieve greater consistency or greater compliance typically. It's usually one of those 4 things. And it's not just AI as an end game unto itself. So what's a better way? A better way is a process that we've followed for quite some time now. We refer to it as activity-based management. We have a flavor of that we've adapted specifically for today's world that helps us think about where we could use AI, because again, it's an extremely powerful tool and there's a lot of different ways to leverage it. But to get to sort of that right solution, first thing we do is we look at that end-to-end process. We want to map out your current state process and think about the various different contours of it. Second thing we do is we look at the activities. What is the work? What is it called? To get a sense of what we call an activity summary. In the context of that activity summary, then we do what's called a volume analysis. And the volume analysis is how many of a particular activity do we get, which then allows us to do some kind of a time study, which could be automated or not automated, to understand how long does the work take. So that allows us to multiply out the idea of like our activities, multiplied by volumes, multiplied by task times. From there, we apply a series of uplifts, project meaning, training, vacation, absence, productivity factors, which then allows us to have a sense of like, what is the staff that we need for the work on hand? Understanding the staff that we need for the work on hand then allows us to compare against that when we think about bringing in technology, which then allows us to calculate the ROI of deploying technology, including AI. So then we get to requirements, goals, and constraints. Sometimes we have other requirements that we're not meeting today or that we must meet in the future. So we do an analysis of like our requirements and our goals. And then we get to that step that kind of lines up with the 3 doors: avoid, automate, optimize. Only then can we really do that, once we've set the proper foundation, which then allows us to build a resource model in a business case, to be able to think about like, how many people do we need today? How many people do we need tomorrow? What's the delta, if we deploy technology, including AI, and then what's the ROI on that relative to our underlying spend? At that point, then we think about, the future organizational work design. So I appreciate your time today. And again, I think that all 3 of these things are important to the environment right now. But it's really kind of working in that right order and saying, hey, you might not need technology yet, but first you need to kind of walk through 3 doors: avoid, automate, and optimize. Thanks very much.